Hello modders! Let's take a look at the new features coming in the next update to DHS. So we're here in this lovely world, and it looks like I have an option to select a name. So what name shall we pick? I'm going to go with Jimmy. The dialog now recognizes my just chosen name. If I wander over here, you'll see we have an interesting little character who can't decide whether he wants to be fat or thin. If I come up to him, he also knows my name. And of course, if I roll, the ghost of Drika haunts me. So let's go into the editor and figure out what makes these changes possible. Let's start with the most exciting one, the new input feature. So how it works, originally in Drika's Hotspot, if you wanted to detect a number of inputs, you would create several hotspots, each one dedicated to checking for a specific key, and then it would write to a variable, and then in another hotspot you would check to see if those variables were true. So it was quite a bit of setup and also quite a bit of hotspots to get running. So it wasn't common to see maps where there was just lines of detect E, detect F, detect jump, and all that sort of thing. Well, now that is all in the past. OnInput now has a multi-input feature where you can enter a whole bunch of inputs, and then based on which input is pressed, you can go to a different line. So all I've done here is I'm checking for all the letters from A to Z. I have not counted for capital letters or anything like that. I'm trying to keep it simple. And then I'm also checking to see if enter is pressed. And then if any of the letters are pressed, I add that to the end of that to the end of the variable character name. And if enter is pressed, I continue on to this lovely dialog here. And this has a demonstration of how you can now input variables into dialog. The rolling thing is just a fun little fix. So a little while back, I added a feature to DHS where you could detect the current animation, but unknowingly, I actually never implemented that feature. And so I have now properly added that, so you can detect when an animation plays and do something based on that. Set character fat. So in CharacterControl, you can now also reference variables. So here, instead of specifically setting how fat I want the character to be, I just tell it to set it to the value of the variable character fat. And then I just repeatedly do that over and over. And then here, I'm just cycling that value back and forth between 25 and 200. To make the greeting work, where Bob came, when you went up to Bob, he greeted you, I used a billboard, because billboards can now also reference variables. So here, I just do hello, and then I reference the variable character name. And the final change, slightly minor one, but could prove useful, and also made that input thing possible. Before, in ReadWriteSaveFile, which had the sliding variable function, you could move the slider back and forth between 1 and 10, and then if you wanted to go higher than that, you could control-click up to 25. That number has now been raised for up to 100, and also the slider goes up to 100 on the multi-input function as well. So if you move your mouse back and forward here, you can go from 1 to 10. If you control-click, you can type in up to 100. And if you see I go all the way down here, you can check or write up to 100 variables at once. But if you try to go above that, let me say 200, it's going to pop itself back to 100 and not let you go higher than that. And that's just so people don't overload or cause memory issues. I think 100 inputs is probably enough for almost anyone. So that is all the new features coming to Drika's Hotspot. should definitely allow for some more powerful features in mods, and I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. Many thanks to Girth and to Alpines for helping me with these features. I will see you in the next video.